Good afternoon. Welcome. Nice to have you all. Thank you
Hello.
for joining us.
Hello, Rabbi.
Good afternoon to one and all. I see we have representation beyond Johannesburg, so nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. We have Mincha at 5:35, which means I have a maximum of 35 minutes. And I'm going to try and do this in 30 or 35 minutes, but it is quite challenging. We did the chapter 1 of Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, last week. I didn't nearly get through it. So what I've done is I'm being realistic, and I'm choosing a number of Mishnayot that we can hopefully get through. And never know how long lockdown will go. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do a round 2 after we go through the first 6 chapters. Maybe we'll have another series, but let's take one thing at a time. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to unmute you all, and perhaps at the end we'll have some time. So I'm going to mute everyone, then maybe afterwards we can unmute for questions. Okay, so if you have a sitter with you, turn to Pirkei Avot in the Art Scroll Sitter. It's page 550, chapter 2. If you don't have a sitter, don't worry, you'll still be able to follow. But for the future, probably best if you have a text in front of you, but not obligatory. So we call the series Ethics from Sinai, based on a work by Irving Bunim back in the 50s, I think. And but it's a collection. I collect and collate material from a variety of sources. There's many books published of commentaries on Pirkei Avot, one of the most widely published works. So I take from here and there things that I enjoy. Okay, Mishnah 1, Rabbi Omer. Rabbi says, Rebbe. Who is this Rebbe? So this is Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi, or Rabbi Judah the Prince, also known as Rabbeinu HaKodesh, our holy rabbi. Or in his day, he was just known as Rebbe, like the Rebbe. He was the Rebbe of that generation. And he lived some 1,800 to 2,000 years ago. And Rebbe's claim to fame is that he saved Judaism. Nothing less than that. He saved Judaism. How did he save Judaism? He was the first to take on his shoulders the bold decision to take the oral law and put it into a written law. Moses gave us 2 Torahs, actually. He gave us a Torah, the 5 books of Moses, but there was also an oral tradition that Moses taught. He was up 40 days and 40 nights on Mount Sinai getting the Torah from God. He didn't just get the 5 books, he got the whole totality of Torah. What we know to this day, Moshe got then. It took him 40 years to teach all the details to the people before he would pass away at the age of 120. Got the Torah, he was 80. So there was always the oral tradition, the between the lines, the behind the scenes. The Torah itself is very brief, concise, cryptic. Tefillin, for example, doesn't tell us need black boxes of leather with straps, with a shin. Just tells us, put these words of the Shema as a sign on your hands and between your eyes. We would never know what to do with what a tefillin looks like without the oral tradition, which was transmitted faithfully generation to generation for centuries. But then with the destruction of the temple and the Roman persecution, Torah was being lost because you had to have settled places of learning and Torah academies where people could sit and learn and remember all this and review it. And when life was turbulent, it was impossible. So the Torah would have been lost. Rabbi took it upon himself to record the halacha, which is beyond the 5 books of Moses, and he gave us what we know today as the Mishnah. And the Mishnah is the forerunner to the Talmud, the Gemara, which is the forerunner to the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, and all the halachic works which guide us to this day. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, Rabbeinu HaKodesh, Rebbe, was a great leader, one of the greatest in history, and we owe him a great deal. So here we have some of his teachings. Rabbi Omer, what does he say? which is the proper path that a man should choose for himself in life, whatever is a credit to himself and earns him the esteem of his fellow men. What does that mean? That what you do should be not only good for you, it should be good for others, and it should give you the respect of others. According to the Bartanura, one of the Spanish commentators, he says that this is a reference. The Rambam, in his famous work, Mishnah Torah, has a section called Hilchos Deos, the laws of what I would call values, life values. And there the Rambam writes that we should always choose the middle path in life. What is the middle path? So if you should be generous, but you shouldn't be extravagant. You should eat well, but don't become a glutton, a chazan. You should be humble, but don't be a shmata. Don't become a doormat for everybody to step on you, and so on and so forth. You should have feelings. You should be able to get angry at times if something really bothers you, but don't lose it. Don't need anger management courses. So the middle path, and the middle path would be good for you and good for others around you. And according to other commentators, it means do things that will earn you the esteem of your fellow men and women, that will earn you the esteem of society, of humanity. What we would say, be a Kiddush Hashem, be a sanctification of God, be a great ambassador for God, for Torah, and for the Jewish people. Don't, God forbid, become an embarrassment. Once upon a time, there were slumlords in Hillbrow who were of the Jewish faith, and they gave us all a bad name. If today a Jew is caught doing something immoral, illegal, we all feel embarrassed. And if a Jew does something wonderful, beyond the call of duty, we all take pride, don't we? That's why everybody thinks every Hollywood star is Jewish. I just want to tell you, not every star in the world has to be Jewish. It's fine, I don't care. I know Kirk Douglas was Jewish, bless his soul, okay? But not everybody has to be Jewish. There's plenty of people that we can take pride in. So we have to be that kind of person that earns the esteem of humanity, that we should be great ambassadors for God and His Torah, and not the opposite. If somebody's come on, please mute yourself. Thank you.
Just go to people.
Okay. This is an honor system. People have to. If there is noise in your background, please mute yourself. Okay, I've just adjusted the settings, so I don't think that we should have problems in the future with that. Okay, now, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi carries on. He says more in this Mishnah. This Mishnah alone could take a half hour, but hopefully we'll do more. He says the second thing, be as scrupulous in performing a minor mitzvah as a major mitzvah, because you don't know the reward given for the respective mitzvahs. And so there are minor mitzvahs and there are major mitzvahs. Fasting on Yom Kippur, having a bris, is more important than davening with a minyan, for example. In the hierarchy of mitzvahs, there is a hierarchy. At the same time, we should not put down any mitzvah and say, oh, that's not important. It's insignificant. People sometimes ask me, Rabbi, is it a din or is it a minhag? Is it a biblical commandment or a rabbinical commandment? As if it's rabbinic or it's a minhag, we making light of it and demeaning it. That's wrong. We should have respect for everything, even the minor mitzvahs, because we never know what the reward is. You never know what the call of the hour is at the time. So if you're stuck and you can do only one thing and there's two things that you have to do, ask the rabbi. We'll tell you what is more important. But generally speaking, we are advised to not to demean even things that are minor. There was a famous sage in the 15th, 16th century, Rabbi David ibn Zimra, in Egypt and later in Israel. He's known by his acronym as the Radbaz. The Radbaz was once asked a famous shaila. He had a halachic question. There was a Jew who was never imprisoned in the Egyptian prison. Not a nice place to be. I think it was even a life sentence he got. But the Sultan of Egypt or somebody, the warders, whoever, they made a concession, major concession, small little thing, but it was still significant. What did they say? They said, this Jew who's in prison, will give him 1 day leave. He can leave prison for 1 day in the whole year. So now this Jew turns to Rabbi, the great spiritual leader of his community, a great halachic authority, and asks, which day should he choose? Should he choose Yom Kippur to be with the community in Shul, Rosh Hashanah to hear the shofar, Pesach to have matzah with his family around the Seder? Should he choose his Shabbos? Should he choose his birthday? Should he choose his father's yahrzeit to go to Shul to say Kaddish? There's so many days. Which day should he choose? The Radbaz answered him like this. Choose the first day that they allow you to get out. Doesn't matter. Monday, Tuesday, Shabbos, Yom Tov. The first opportunity, grab it. Don't distinguish. Don't say Yom Kippur is more important, Pesach is more important. Just take the first opportunity to do whatever mitzvah you can do. You'll be a free man for that day. You'll be able to do lots of mitzvahs. Doesn't matter which ones, which is a fascinating insight. And then Rabbi Yehuda Nasi ends this Mishnah, Histakel b'shloisha dvarim. Have a good look. Look carefully into 3 things. Consider 3 things, and you will not come lidei aveda, into the grip of sin, to the hands of sin. Not only will you not sin, you won't even come into the handle of sin. You won't get near sinning. What are the 3 things? Da malamayla mimach, know that which is above you, a watchful eye, an attentive ear, and all your deeds are recorded in a book. Basically, somebody's watching. You might not see the closed circuit cameras. There might not be a zoom camera on you, but God is always watching. And he has eyes that see, he has ears that hear, and everything is recorded. I used to say in a little black book. Today I don't say that anymore because today it's all captured on the divine database. And when we get up to the pearly gates after 120, you know what they're going to do? They're not going to call for witnesses. They're just going to play the video of our lives in front of us. And probably the chances are we may be embarrassed here and there of certain mistakes that we made. So just have that in mind that, if you don't want them to play the video of what you're doing up there in the pearly gates in front of the heavenly court, then maybe think twice before you engage in certain activities. The Chofetz Chaim is attributed that he once said the telephone. What do we learn from the telephone? He said, well, we learn from the telephone that what is said here is heard there, up in heaven. I don't know if it was he or someone else who said, what do you learn from the telegram? Who remembers telegrams? Today, telegram is like WhatsApp, but there used to be telegrams where you sent a few words. You learn from a telegram that you have to pay for every word. Every word you say, you're going to pay for. And basically, I would say that there's the eye that sees and the ear that hears, the little black book, everything is written. Basically, there is a computer data. If computers down here can do it, how much more so can the divine database know everything? I was taken aback a couple of years ago. I went, when I was in America, I needed some documentation. So they said the quickest place is the Brooklyn Department of Motor Vehicles. So I went to the Department of Motor Vehicles and I tried to get some ID that I needed. And I'm waiting in the queue and I get to the teller and he's looking up my name and my whatever. And he says to me, this nearly floored me. He says, did you have an accident in 1975 with a Pontiac? This is now in probably 2015 or something. And he's asking me from how many years ago? 40 years. 40 years ago, they had it on the computer that I had an accident with a green Pontiac. I remember it was my wife's car, a Pontiac Le Mans. You could have knocked me over with a feather that they had this on their database all these years later. So we should be aware. The Baal Shem Tov or the Maggid, I'm not sure which one it was, said these Hebrew words, Da malamayla mimach, know that which is above you. He interpreted very interestingly. Alternatively, he said, know that that which is above, mimach, is from you. Meaning that your actions or inactions here in this world can affect the very heavens. You have an effect and influence not only here in society, in the community, and your family, what you do affects the very heavens and could maybe even influence God's decision. So our deeds are very, very important. Let's move on to Mishnah 2. Mishnah 2, I'm not going to go through everything, but Rabbi Gamliel, B'nai Shel Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rebbe's son, Rabbi Gamliel, was also the head of the community. He says, Yofa Talmud Torah im derech eretz. Talmud Torah, the study of Torah, is nice, is beautiful, when it is combined with derech eretz. Derech eretz literally means the way of the world, the way of the earth, but it's also understood to mean an occupation, a job, a business, some means of earning a livelihood. We should have both. We should have time for Torah study and time to earn a livelihood. We should have work. We should have a business. We shouldn't sit on our backside waiting for handouts, waiting for welfare, or waiting for miracles from God even. So there's a Gemara in Brachos 35b where it's recorded a difference of opinion, an outlook, a view of life, two different perspectives on life. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great sage, greatest of his time, he said a person should study Torah the whole day and the whole night, nothing else. How can you be busy planting potatoes instead of studying the Holy Torah, the divine wisdom? Rabbi Yishmael argued with Rabbi Shimon. He said, no, a person should have Torah and derech eretz. He should also spend time earning a living. And the Gemara says, many tried to follow Rabbi Shimon's path of Torah exclusively, and they failed. Because how could they sustain themselves? So Rabbi Shimon was the greatest of his time, and his students did nothing but study Torah. Toratan umnatan, it says of them. Torah was their profession. They were professional Torah scholars, and therefore they could do Torah exclusively. And we do need people like that in every generation in our own time, people who will be the sages and the leaders and the religious decisors, halachic authorities. We need people who will be completely immersed in Torah. But that's, in my view, the exception. That's a small number of people. For the average person, we should try and combine Torah and making a living at the same time. And today we have a big social problem. I don't have time, it's a whole lecture in its own, but in Israel today, it's a very, very stark cultural divide, and the secular community is very upset with the Haredi community, not only that they didn't keep the restrictions of the coronavirus immediately, but they don't go to the army and they don't have jobs and all kinds of things, and it's created a lot of strife in Israel. And it's something which should be reserved for those who are taka, true, genuine Torah scholars, and not just for every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or Chaim, Shmerel, and Berel. That's my view, and that's the view of my teacher, the Rebbe. But there are other schools of thought who try and encourage every single person to learn only Torah the whole life. You can get a stipend if your wife can work. That's an ideal that they subscribe to, and each to their own. Then Rabbi Gamliel says one more thing here. He says, all those who are occupied with the needs of the community should do it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, meaning for the right reasons, not for ulterior motives. And if they do that, then they will be amply rewarded. You know that in shul, we don't say it now at home, but when we come back to shul, please God soon, every Shabbos morning, between Shachris and Musaf, we have a Misha Berach prayer, not only for Israel and South Africa. We say a prayer, it's in every siddur. And we pray for the community's well-being and our families. And we add a special line, for those who are oskim b'tzorchei tzibur be'emunah, for those who are occupied with the needs of the community be'emunah, faithfully, meaning they're not doing it for yichus, for status, for honor, perceived delusional honors maybe, but they're doing it faithfully because they believe. So they tell a story of a fellow who went back in Europe, went to a shtetl looking for his long lost cousin, who he knew was the Gabbai of the community. So he says, hey, maybe you know where Chaim the Gabbai lives? He says, oh, that Ganef, 2 blocks down, make a left. Goes 2 blocks down, makes a left, still doesn't find it. So he stops another guy. Maybe you know where Chaim the Gabbai lives? Oh, that lowlife. Go straight ahead over there that way. Still doesn't find it. Ask the third guy. He says, do you know where Chaim the Gabbai lives? That horse thief. Ah, that liar. Yeah, up the stairs, third floor. Anyway, finally gets to his cousin Chaim the Gabbai. He says, Chaim, this job of Gabbai must be a very well-paid position, eh? He says, what are you talking about? I don't get paid for this. He says, really? So why do you do it? Why do I do it? I do it for the COVID, of course, for the honor, for the great honor I get. So much for the honor that he got. Anyway, we have to do it be'emunah, l'shem shamayim, and then we will be amply rewarded. Mishnah 3, I'm not going to say much about because you know the commentary as best as I do, as good as I do. Be very, very wary of rulers, of government, because they befriend someone only for their own benefit. They act friendly when it benefits them, but they do not stand by you in your time of need. I think the same could be said for all governments around the world. I don't think that ours has any special distinction here, even though we have our own issues, but it's a governmental thing throughout history. This is many, many centuries ago that this was written, and it seems to be a universal problem. One of my favorite Mishnahs, and I talk about this sometimes at prayers, is Mishnah 5. Excuse me. Mishnah 5 is from the teachings of the great Hillel. And Hillel, I could talk about Hillel for 15 minutes, but we don't have time. So Hillel said in Mishnah 5, he says 5 things. I'll go through it quickly. Number 1, Al tifrosh min hatzibur. Do not disassociate yourself from the community. You are part of a community. Man is not an island. So if the community is experiencing good times, celebrate with them. Bad times, mourn with them. Don't say, I'm okay, I don't have to participate. Let's say there's a drought or something, and there's water restrictions, but you have a borehole, so you're okay. You should still be in sympathy and in step with the community. If there's a simcha in the family, simcha in the community, a shul nearby is having a new Sefer Torah, go and celebrate. COVID regulations, don't disassociate from the community what everybody else is supposed to be doing, whether in good times or bad. Secondly, Hillel says, do not believe in yourself until the day you die. Don't trust yourself. Now, this does not mean you should not have a sense of self-worth or self-confidence or self-esteem. That's not what it means. What it means, you should not become smug and complacent that you've arrived and you know it all and you're religious and holy and nothing can ever happen to you. Talmud tells a story of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. He was the high priest of Israel. To be the high priest means you walk into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur in the temple, the inner sanctum that no one else can set foot in. And you have the opportunity. And if you're not worthy, you don't come out alive. He went in decade after decade and he came out safely. He was such a holy guy. You know what happened to him in the end of his life? He went off the rails. He became reformed. He joined the Tzaddikim, a renegade movement. Unbelievable that a person who was so holy, who did so many holy things, who was in the Holy of Holies, should go off the path. It's unthinkable, but it happened. It could happen to him. It could happen to anyone. So therefore, we should never be smug and complacent. And we should not trust ourselves till the day we die. We should always be on our guard, morally, religiously, ethically. Thirdly, Al todin es chavercha ad shetagia lemekoymoi. Do not judge your fellow until you have reached his place. What does that mean, reached his place? Until you're in his position. Because we can't really cannot judge people until we know really their circumstances. So if somebody does something that's clearly wrong, he murdered somebody, of course we can judge the act. But what if he was a street urchin who never had parents, who never had a school, who never had anyone to teach him right from wrong? It's a rachmanis, okay? He's a criminal, and lock him up. But try and rehabilitate him. Don't just look at what he did. Look at the person also. So you have to understand where people come from. We can't justify murder or any criminal activity, but we shouldn't judge people until we know where they come from. The Indians in America, they had a statement. They said, "Don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in his moccasins," meaning until you know how it feels to live like he's living. So we sometimes say, well, what do you mean? We grew up together, he and I, and look what a rubbish he's turned into. Why can't I judge him? We come from the same background. We both grew up in Germiston or wherever, And the truth is, you still can't judge because there's heredity, there's DNA. No two people are identical. Even if they went to the same school, the same neighborhood, same social economic strata, no two people are identical. Even identical twins are not identical. And therefore, until we're in their exact position, we shouldn't judge them. So I would say that Hillel was really saying, never judge anyone because you're never in his exact position. Here's another alternative commentary. Until you reach his place, don't judge him. What does it mean? Until you see his community, where he lives. How is he judged? How is he, how is he looked upon in his own place of residence, in his own town? Some people are international celebrities. They're world famous. But if you go to their little town or their little community or their little enclave or society or shul or whatever it might be, he's not so special. He's not regarded in such great esteem. Maybe because they know him better. Maybe when you're, over the other side of the ocean, it looks good. Talk a good game. You really want to know somebody, see how he's treated and how he's respected or not in his own place, in his own community. And somebody went a step further and said, you really want to know someone, ask their wife, because she knows better than everybody. Okay, and then the fourth one is, Hillel says, do not say something which cannot be readily understood, hoping that in the end it will be understood, because it'll be a lot of misunderstandings. Until you explain it, a lot of damage can be done. An alternative interpretation, which I love, don't say something that should not be heard, because in the end it will be heard. Meaning, don't tell secrets. My late sister, when she was a teenager, had a poster in her bedroom. It said the definition of a secret is something you tell one person at a time. In other words, there's no such thing as a secret. The walls have ears, we know that. So if it shouldn't be known, don't tell it to anyone. Somebody once came to the Rebbe and he wanted some information from the Rebbe, and it was very private and confidential information about something or someone, I don't know the details. And he asked the Rebbe if he could share it with him. The Rebbe said, can you keep a secret? So the guy got all excited. The Rebbe's going to tell him. He said, yes, I can keep a secret. The Rebbe said, so can I. So can I. And he didn't tell him. So if it's not meant to be known, don't tell it to anyone. And finally, Hillel's last message in Mishnah 5, his fifth message is, do not say, when I have time, I will study Torah, or perhaps you will never become free. You will never find the time. I can't tell you how many times I have asked people, "No, when are you going to come to the shir? When are you going to come to shul?" "Oh, Rabbi, I'm too busy now. I got to make my first million. When I have time." 25 years later, I see the guy. "No, you made your first million. I still don't see you." He says, "No, Rabbi, now I'm too old. Now I'm no kayach." There's never a good time. The time is now. If something is important, it's important enough to do it now. I'm very pleased to see all of you on Zoom tonight joining the shir who are making the time to study Torah, which is exactly what Hillel was teaching us here in Mishnah 5. We have time for a little bit more, so let's go to Mishnah 6 on page 552 in the Article Siddur, or in the English 553. Mishnah 6 reads, he, the same Hillel, used to say, Ein bur yirei chet, v'lo yamor etz chosid, v'lo yabai shalom, v'lo yakapte malamed. Okay. A boor, that's B-O-O-R, not B-O-E-R. A boor cannot be fearful of sin, doesn't have a sensitivity. An unlearned person cannot be scrupulously pious because you don't know the halacha, you don't know what to do. If you're unlearned, you'll never know. So you have to learn to know how to live, how to behave correctly. The bashful person, someone who's shy, cannot learn. He'll be afraid to ask a question. What if the teacher says it's a stupid question? There's no such thing as, the only stupid question is the one that does not get asked, because then you remain stupid because you never get the answer. So if you're bashful, you'll never learn. Don't be ashamed. Ask. And the quick, impatient person cannot teach. The best teachers we all had in school were those who were patient and tolerant and had time for us. And then he says, if you're too excessively occupied and immersed and drowning in business, you cannot become a scholar. So there's a story of a chassid back in Russia who came to his Rebbe. He used to study a lot of Torah, and then his business started booming, and he was in the overshoes business. He sold rubber galoshes for Russian winters. And the Rebbe says to him, I've seen feet in galoshes. I've never seen a head in galoshes before, till I met you. Your whole head is in the galoshes. Your whole head is in the overshoes and the boots. Meaning your whole head is in the business. You forgot to come to shul to study. You forgot your family. You're so obsessed and immersed in the business that you're forgetting everything else that's important. And finally, for tonight, the last lesson in Mishnah 6, which is one of my favorites, because it is one of the definitions of what it is to be a mensch. I've written articles, I hope to write a book one day, please God, on what it is to be a mensch. Here, Hillel gives us one answer. In a place where there are no leaders, you strive to be a leader. Or in a place where there are no mention, you be the mensch. I could interpret this to say that a mensch is one who does the right thing at all times, in all situations, even if everyone else around him is doing the wrong thing, a mensch will still do the right thing. And even if someone else wrongs him or her, a mensch will not necessarily respond in kind and will do the right thing. So that's one of the great lessons of being a mensch. Try to be a man. I interpret man here not just as a man, but a leader, as the translation here is, but also to be a mensch. That's all the time we have for now. So thank you very much for joining me. And we're going to be doing mincha momentarily. Let me